Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Reinventing Mental Health, where we're moving beyond symptom management to look at root causes for why mental health symptoms are presenting to begin with. And then we're exploring some of the functional means that we can use in order to help resolve those symptoms. Today, we have with us my friend Julie, who's an author. And I had the pleasure of meeting her at an event recently. So I wanted to share what Julie is doing because I was so excited when I got to talk to her. Julie, tell us a little bit about you and what it is that you're doing.
I got to jump right in. I am deeply concerned about the mental and emotional health of the next generation of kids. And to that end, I've written a book series that is unlike anything else out there. No one else in the whole wide world is doing what I'm doing to reach the next generation of kids with the true story of what's happening in the 21st century. And in a way that will not doom them, but delight them. So along the way, doing these books and talking about them, I have been called the red-pilled Mary Poppins.
I love it.
Hopefully your audience, hopefully they haven't, I'm not so old that Mary Poppins isn't reaching, yet still reaching out there to the moms of Europe. But most people do remember Mary Poppins. And she was that irrepressible nanny that flew into the midst of a very actually dysfunctional family.
Oh, yeah.
If you think about it, the Banks family, mom was completely distracted. She was actually a political activist. The kids are a mess. They can't keep order in the house. The dad's a banker, and all he can think about is top-down structure and his profit margin. And there are these people in the house who are, the cook and the whatever, and the kids are running wild. And in flies Mary Poppins. She had this delightful spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. The medicine of what this family is going to have to need to do and understand in order to become a cohesive family, right? So I put it this way. If Mary Poppins flew into the 21st century and she took that red pill from the Matrix movie, y'all know that the Matrix movie?
Yep.
Which so much to pause, I have to maybe, but the idea is very dystopian, a movie about dystopia. And the guy has a chance to either take the blue pill, he can kind of go back to sleep and actually live in a virtual world where he's come up to him and essentially being harvested for his life energy, but he's living in this little made up universe while he's so deaf. You need a blue pill, go back to sleep. You can take the red pill and wake up and go, oh my gosh, look what's really happening. So he takes the red pill and it's a crazy movie. And then how he decides to be a part of the change to wake others up. Anyway, Mary Poppins explored the 21st century and she took the red pill from the Matrix movie. She would not use her spoonful of sugar to help with dysfunctional families, kids clean their room. Because that's where we see her spoonful of sugar go down and they're snapping and cleaning. They're doing chop pictures and all that stuff. Feeding the bird. And it's really important because at the end of that movie, she brings the family together. And there's an awakening for each member of the family, right? And Mary Poppins came here now. She used her red pill, spoonful of sugar to write these books.
Yep.
Where's the common sense? Where's the thinking? What total control through fear, narrative, propaganda, little circles on the ground everywhere, people wearing masks, even though they've known since the early 1930s from the yellow, the femur that's in the early 1900s, that they do nothing. Yet people are embracing total control, screaming at each other, fearful you're going to kill grandma if she's not off in summer, completely sealed up. And meanwhile, then now shutting everyone up. We've got an alternative voice. In 2020, I had written my first book, Constance in the Battle of the Wonder, because I was interested in the subject of knowledge conformity. And around 2019, so before the 2020 thing really exploded, I had already written this book. And it's about a single family. They live in an entirely colorblind town. They're the only people who can see color because they interact with the supernatural realm called wonder. All these other kids go to the grown-up factory to school every day where they learn to conform to something called a prescribed order. And then whole town conform. And over time, when people conform to the order, gradually lose their ability to see color. So they're very active in their gray areas. They wear gray, think gray, do gray, eat gray, live like gray ice cream. It's a local ice cream shop and all that kind of stuff. And this one family, the Fulton family, they can see color because of the realm of wonder, which makes them independent thinkers, questioners, and creatives. And they know that the difference, like this is how they would live here in the whole world. And I have to show you their house on their top hill. This is one of my favorite illustrations. So you can see the difference between what they're surrounded by. Here it is. See, there's the house. There's where everyone else lives in, and all the tic-tac is saying houses everywhere. So we're already setting up this family swimming upstream. They kind of are like pretty cool doing their own thing. But what happens when their daughter Constance wants to go to school with all the other kids? Because she just like wants, she gets great and intriguing. She had no idea that when she enters that room, that the elders of the order now see their opportunity to get their hand on the last non-conforming family that escaped their controlling grasp. And here they are, the elders, right? And she had no idea when she goes there that the decision she makes are going to affect the destiny of her entire. So with this one metaphor of the gray and the prescribed order, conformity, and the people behind the scenes, gaming it out, pulling strings, manipulating situations, the pressures with other kids that she makes, the relationships that develop, the heartbreak, the tensions within the family because now she's got other influences. I begin to unpack, a coming of age story that any kids just experience kind of on one level in school. But when you realize there's a whole other game going on behind the scenes, now I'm really looking deep at establishment structures that really involve control in our families. And in this book, I really look deeply into education, into relationships, and also into this whole idea of subjective reality. Because she starts having experiences that are very real, but are they true? She starts feeling things, and they're so viscerally powerful. She questions everything she knows about reality. This is what our kids are experiencing. I'm in the wrong body. I can be an animal. I'm a victim.
And that's why we have so many kids with things like anxiety and depression and ADHD. It is so hard for us to feel confident and comfortable when we have so many different mixed messages coming at us from so many different directions.
So even though she's got this beautiful grounded family, she starts to have experiences that are so powerful she can't say they're not real. You can't just go, oh, get over it. You can't minimize the depth of an anxiety or a perception or a hurt or a message that lands in you and destabilizes you, right? So this book asks the question, well, if it's real, that's one thing, but is it true? And so we begin the very deep things, but super funny because my family is an intact family figuring it out, and they're just trying, something's changing. What's going on? And I just had a 15-year-old girl. These are books are roughly from 10 to 14. Tell her mom, this girl's not a reader. And her mom said, you're going to sit for 20 minutes and at least read the first book in this series for 20 minutes. And her mom texted me back and said, I can't believe it. I made her read it. And she said, and she loved it all fast. And she said, no, I feel like I'm reading about myself.
Yeah. Kids can identify.
Yes. And also she had a brother. They're very involved. So it's not just a girly story. Every character in this family steps to the fore in its subsequent books, right? So this is our world building book. This is laying the groundwork for conformity and non-conformity. This is developing discernment, right? And this is what I was working on in 2019.
Okay.
And then I went from that to book 2, Constance and Chance, her crazy brother who loves things up to see how it works. Because they were the elders of the order can't quite take control of Constance in book 1. They go all out. Remember, trust is science, everybody? Trust is science. The elders of the order realize that science is dangerous Because if you don't control the questions, you don't control the answers. Their premise about how the universe works, how the world works, how people work, origins, values, meaning, and they use the science fair to convince the kids there is no purpose or meaning in design. You need the order. You need to conform even harder. Harder conformity because science, because trust in science, right? So now we're unpacking that whole idea, and your brother can't stand the premises that they're setting up. So based in school science fair with a supernatural project from one to prove there's geniosity behind the other. And beyond, along the way, then there's conflict between him and his sister because she's still just trying to fit in now in her schooly environment. Well, what can happen? The president from the science fair creates a black hole that almost sucks in. Go down, you know, I mean, like, how big people. And we start to really unpack the scientific method.
Okay. Yep.
Right. So that because a lot of what's passing for science isn't really based on the scientific method, which is the classic means by which you take a single thought, a single idea, a single substance, you test a premise, all possible conditions to prove that that single idea, thought, premise, reaction does exactly what you think it does. And you have, it's very rigorous versus the kind of science that is politicized for a certain outcome in order to control.
So, well, and that's a big part of this conversation, right? Like we were all told, trust the science, trust the science, trust the science. But the whole thing is, science is not supposed to be just blindly trusted. The entire point of science is we redo it. Do we come up with the same conclusion? And we've seen throughout history that no, we don't always come up with the same conclusion. Right. Cigarettes, they told us, totally fine for you. They're healthy. Everybody should be smoking cigarettes. Well, now we know they cause lung cancer. So why are we smoking cigarettes? And of course,
go ahead.
Yep. And of course, that's not real like tobacco cigarettes. That's the cigarettes they've put all these additives in that are causing the cancers because nicotine and tobacco itself is not a cancer causing product.
No, it's really healing.
Yeah.
Like people smoking, like a cigar smoker, you could not get COVID if you were smoking tobacco. A lot of people were using doctors using nicotine patches.
Yep.
And staying healthy, and they couldn't tell us people about that. But what I'm saying is that you're exactly right. And so I begin to unpack the corruption of science, the use and abuse of science, manipulation. So we're building through education, through relationships. You know, we're taking on science and we're taking on conflict within a family as his daughter Constance is really wrestling with what she's surrounded by all the time, as opposed to what her family put in her separately as a kind of an independent thinker. Well, see, this is what I was working on. Alice said we wake up in 2020, and now I'm going to write this book. This is Constance and Charleston and the bombastic Battlegab. Charleston is her brother who's nerdy. He reads the dictionary just for fun because he loves words. And it starts out now saying, Constance, you have no idea. You don't know, really can control the whole world with this book. And she looks at it in the dictionary. So he is deep into the idea of how words are used from page 1. And my books are really vocabulary rich, but written so that the context always reveals the meanings. Children will not stumble over the words. They'll feel brilliant when they read my books. And so what happens when the elders of the order can't control Constance and her family to the science fair? And when other people embrace their hearts, start to see color too. Color is a threat because people who can see color will ask questions. They look at being independent and they will reach for wonder, that realm of wonder, which is a threat to the elders of the order. Well, they're so freaked out at the end of book 2 that other people in Greystone Heights are starting to see dashes of color. They say, we can't tell them they haven't seen it. They know it's real. We'll just tell them what it means. And this is a book about propaganda.
Okay.
And it teaches all about propaganda in Greystone Heights. A play It's come to town. It's laid down with that black hole thing that happened in science fair. And one of the symptoms of getting it is seeing color. And so color can kill you. It's the black hole ray, and it's associated with this color exposure. So everyone in the town has to wear gray glasses at all times on their face to keep them safe from seeing a speck of color when they can die.
Oh my.
And I'm talking this to parents and parents will go, Mommy, it sounds like just what we went through, during the whole COVID thing. I'm like, yeah, smart, pay attention. Because this kid is the nerd, so that's stupid. And he actually does the research.
Mhm.
He actually looks into quote and science by himself. And he said, it's really stupid if you really did have a bioweapon or a biohazard or a microscopic thing that could get to you and make you sick and die. You're not living in a bubble. You slap something on your face and protect you from something like that, right?
Yeah.
And so he is infuriated by the lies. And the fact that everyone's believing it and screaming at them so that they are where they're very left. So he creates a newspaper to tell the truth. Well, the one non-important family print so nice. It's been great glasses that are being got aware. They're all media sources. Did we go through that? Did we go through being canceled and bullied and beaten at and threatened and surveilled?
So many people went through that.
Exactly. And where I met you was at the conference on health freedom. And that people have so many really painful stories.
I mean, so for me, being in functional mental health, one of the things that I talked about frequently during the pandemic was, guys, one, you need to be outside, okay? Because the sunlight is your best friend. You need sunlight. And two, vitamin D. And do you know how frequently I got banned off of all of the different media platforms? And it would be 90 days at a time. And I'm not talking about anything super controversial. I'm pinning the NIH's own research to my posts, and I'm being told it's misinformation. But we know that vitamin D and sunlight are so important for immunity, but also for things like mental health and physical health.
Right.
The thing getting in trouble for or banned for made no sense.
Right, because of this propaganda.
Yeah.
And our children were traumatized by this propaganda.
Yeah.
Our children, we have experienced global propaganda trauma.
Mhm.
And so in the first 3 books, you see where I'm heading with this. These are childlike, fun, and super exciting characters, but they're not childish books. They're childlike, but not childish. And so the nerd here, Charleston, begins to research what is propaganda. How does it work? Well, that's our fun words for propaganda. That's what that means. And they, Mom, the wild ass Babylon they're joining us today. And this we have to teach it out there in the book. They have to experience it. And they have, guess what? In my book, they have authorized ideas. Your surveys what's allowed in the media.
Mhm.
And we have, guess what? They tell everybody that color is a threat to kill you. So now we have the Center for Color Control. The CDC. Then everything everybody has to do. Pretty much on the nose with this what we went through the CDC. Well, that was the Center for Color Control. And guess who's the commissioner for the Center for Color Control in my book? A woman named Ms. Amber Morpheus.
What a name.
Shit's like all names, right? And so Fauci showed up in my book in his own way. But the point is they're written artfully enough that if the child is not remembering exactly the pun there or the little joke, it doesn't matter. Because we're teaching concepts that are timeless. My friends are not driven by technology, so they will age out. And they are history books. Because this is exactly the way this happened to us. I'm documenting it all, but I'm documenting it in narrative symbolic form. So years from now, people pick up these books, they're going to go, oh my gosh, that's exactly what happens to us. They're not going to age. So that's the books 1 through 3, which are in print now. But going off to the printer like this week, our books 4, 5, and 6. And guess what? Book 4 takes on the injuries, because what happens, what they do in book 3 is when they can't control the children and they show them won't wear their gray glasses all the time and they take them off, they throw them on. The elders freak out. They say, that's no problem. We'll just lock everybody in their houses, the children in their houses for safety until they take our immunization drops, our safety drops to make you permanently colorblind so you'll never see color again and then you can come out of your house.
Mm-hmm.
And the irony of that is color is true.
Mm-hmm.
And the irony of what has happened to people is that it's significant to the idea that the government can tell you when and where to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that this horrible bioweapon that people injected made us safe. Now there is a deep level of denial, and it goes for many people an inability to handle that thing like. And so, book 4, I take that on with the smallest member of the family, and it's called Constance in Chief and the Blind Spot Blunder. Because in my books, when children take the safety drops that can come out of their houses, some children are blinded. We're not playing games with these stories.
Mm-hmm.
But they always, this family has the realm of wonder, which gives them reason and help to deal with. And I really wonder it's real. Because I'm making things up that are acceptable for families to have with themselves. And then by book 5, I think on the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset and Leveraged Weaponry.
Oh my heavens.
And they're super highly illustrated because you don't tell kids that color is a metaphor for revelation and give them black and white books. And they're magazine quality archival paper because these are not throwaways. These are the things you need on your shelf. Because let's face it, our children were traumatized and propagandized and controlled and manipulated. We all were. And somebody else to tell them what that means. They have all kinds of ideas in their head about what all that meant.
Yeah.
And it better be somebody who writes Mary Poppins. The red pill Mary Poppins, who helps them understand what really happened. So I have the full of work to help the World Economic Forum go down. Because there really is a superstructure of controlling forces that we're dealing with. That's a theory. It's a fact. And it's more obvious now than ever. So children are maturing into that. Probably prepare them for this. Like I tell people, there's some things you can't avoid. Like if your dog gets run over by a car, grandma gets sick and she's going to die, or God forbid, your father and everything getting divorced. You don't leave that out of your conversation. You find something else, find a way to sit them down and say, honey, so sorry to have to tell you this, but here it is. You don't leave the true story of what is happening in our structures of life, media, science, education, relationships, medicine, right? Drops and safety protocols. And if our children do not understand this, we could be the most enlightened people in the world, and they will fall back into the gray, into the control, into the darkness, into the manipulation that comes with its depression and all those things, and anxiety. So there has to be a way to communicate timeless truth and clarity to a whole generation of kids. And that's exactly what I'm doing. You see what no one else is doing is there's so many good and evil books. I love that. I go to homeschool conferences. I did a lot last year. And there's more really, really good books for kids. But nobody is doing this.
Have you been doing any of the homeschool conferences?
Yes, I wrote your number up in last year.
Okay.
I find that my people are the aware and awakened minds that realize they have to communicate these ideas. But how do you sit down, especially on a day-to-day basis, and go, you don't have to tell you about a big population?
That's too big for most adults to even think about.
We're living it out because you can see how major corporations toxify our environment and our food, and then they wind up owning the drug companies that are supposed to make us better when we're sick and dying. And so there's this cycle of who owns this pesticide, who owns supposed cure for whatever this disease is pesticide toxin. And you can see the amount of it's all now coming out about how health systems are being manipulated. And, the whole thing, the NGO deal, all of it, the whole thing. And what we're finding out about how our television, television is completely manipulated by the drug companies because they pay for the ads for all the television shows, the media, right, and everywhere you see it. And there needs to be a savvy that we pass on to our kids. A lot, how to start, redo homework, how you going to do that. And I go, I got you. I have this, I really do. I got it. And you're going to love it because these books are trauma healing books. She had a story of trauma. And I want to say about the other thing about book when we're finished with this idea, but I'm finding that people are really healed because when they read my stories, they can go out of themselves enough to identify with the characters without re-traumatizing themselves. Yet now they're starting to see and experience and process the emotions and influences that they've been experiencing.
Yeah. I have two teenagers. Actually, one is a young adult at this point in time. They were both in high school during the course of COVID. And the things that we were seeing and hearing, it was so confusing. They didn't really understand why things were happening the way that they were or why people were saying the things that they were saying. Some of the most powerful things that we did for our kids during that time was actually take them to protests so that they could be a participant and then go home and watch the news about the event that they were just at.
Yeah.
And that was
exactly
right. The events that we were at, there were thousands of people showing up for these events. And the news would portray it as a couple hundred people showed up. And then there was a strong counter protest, and there was like 10 people in the counter protest. And my kids are like, but they're lying. Why are they lying on the news? This doesn't make any sense. So we're a homeschool family now. We ended up pulling them out of school during COVID because there were a number of things that happened from the school districts that were totally inappropriate. We just decided it's best to pull them out of the school. We don't want these things in front of them. But in doing that, they really started asking more questions. We ended up moving in the middle of COVID. We left Connecticut. We moved to Texas. We gave up everything that we had up there so that we could come and our kids could experience life and freedom again, especially in the midst of COVID. We got here January 2021. So their mental health at the beginning of this, it was plummeting, and it was plummeting fast because kids and teenagers, they have to have those life experiences that are supposed to be going on in those age groups. And to pull them out and tell them you can't come out of your house was absolutely astounding to me.
Like, you can't walk on the beach,
right.
You can't go to a playground and be outside. Or in some cases, people were showing up, police were showing up.
We actually were going to the parks anyways. Like we would jump fences so that we could get into parks or onto beaches or playgrounds because none of that made any sense to me. And it's just not how human biology works. It's also not how germs work. It makes no sense to put something on to walk 10 feet into a restaurant to take it back off. Like this amount of difference from standing up to sitting down determines whether or not something's going to get me.
Right. Well, it's so funny because in this stuff called Basket Africa, where they pull out the gray glasses thing and they tell you got to wear. She's trying to take her off, and then in the background are all these other kids that look like zombies with their glasses on.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this is our beautiful 7-color rainbow. And because of the full spectrum of truth, not just the censored rainbow that's used for a political purpose. And so I have a character named Karen who wears 2 glasses at all times just to keep her super safe from seeing any color. And she rats on the kids who don't wear their glasses all the way. And but when I was writing this book, I didn't know if my family would be okay because I didn't know how we were going to not be okay. But I was not thinking I want to be on the planet because everyone else was so crazy. And so it was amazing to see how this book unfolded, how the solutions came as I wrote, and how they became prescient for others. because these books, adults love these books.
Good.
Because, you have to find a way to move out of the constant stimulus and traumatic imagery of media. So I love children's literature for that purpose, and sat down at the library trying to check some out. And what passes for good literature today at the library is pretty disappointing.
Yeah.
So in the first 5 books are for kids 10 to 14.
Mhm.
And adults love. Now, if you have a younger child, it's certainly a wonderful read because there's nothing happening that's going, the vocabulary is rich, and the younger child would like. But the concepts are very rich indeed. So I have a study guide to go with these for parents that want to be asking questions. And if you buy the book bundles, you get the audiobooks for free.
Nice.
And the only way you can get these is on my website. Can't get them anywhere else because I just didn't want to build up a following anywhere and then have them hold me because I'm just not, corrected them. And I know things have opened up quite a bit, but also there's Amazon and stuff that authors, you make very little on your work.
Oh, no. My books are on Amazon. I'm not making anything off of them.
So obviously this is, nobody goes into writing to become rich. That's big, but there's every month my husband's going, okay, like, how much money do I have to cover? He goes, but it's piece of value. And he keeps going, Julie, we gotta hear these books. Anyway, on my website, you get these bundles. So when you buy the books, you get the audiobooks for free. Who doesn't want to map race so nice? Find out where they live and what years are beautifully illustrated and all that stuff. And in books 1 through 5, you saw the progression. We're dealing with the manipulation, corruption of education, of pure stuff, science, right, of media, of medicine, and then finally food supplies and weather and total governmental large-scale control, all of these 5 books. And in each book, one of the family members comes to the fore, so we start with Constant, and then book 2 is Chance, the crazy one, then it's Charleston, the nerdy one, then it's she, the little bossy kid in the family, and in book 5, it's the dog, Cornelius, who has an inner life, who becomes the champion. And so then moving on into my YA thing, I start really unpacking deeper things about the kinds of crises that teens are going through and the need for reconciliation because so much has wanted the souls of our kids that there's got to be a way back home. And so these books are targeted that way. And so one of the things that I was doing at the homeschool conferences is I got to do sessions on what to do when trauma hits. Because as a homeschool family, one of our children was sexually abused by another homeschooler until 17 by the best friend of our homeschool. And it's by a wonderful family, never guessed in 9 years. And then our child begins to gloating. 17 from sexual abuse by our neighbor homeschool boy. Hello, Mary Poppins, we need you. We need wonder, we need revelation, we need healing because I'm just minding my own business outside where you think the dangers are, it shows up in our home.
Yeah.
So because of that, we learned how to become a trauma healing family because we would not let pain and motivate goodbye and throw keep a lot of my stories. I would go to homeschool conferences and do a thing called What to Do When Trauma Gets Home. Because a lot of times at these conferences, they tell you more to do, more for to buy, how to be a better schooler, how to be a better activist, how to be a better health freedom person or whatever. But who's addressing the wounds that the parents and the kids are carrying on right in the midst of all that good work, right? So I used a guy named Praying Bed, Dave Hayes, his Christian, and he had these 3 easy, emotional healing and 3 easy steps. And you kind of want to go, well, that's for like snake oil. But honestly, they work. And they work beautifully with and adults. And I pray to people all over the world using these 3 simple steps. They're biblical. That's why they're so powerful. And they involve exchange. And God actually interacting with you in that process. And so a lot of those, I got the most amazing stories because we would be in a group and I would expose and integrate with a therapy session. But I would take people through the steps so that then they could go home And when they identified things going on with their kids, they could use that with their kids. So we get something dealt with so that then they don't have to go off and counseling or therapy or analysis 10 years later. Hopefully we want to clean up Title 7, clean up the mess while we're in an environment where we can work these through. That's hard. So somebody came to me and said, Julie, you have to write a book on trauma, human trauma. And I thought about it. I was like, probably should, but I can't do feedback and Frank Bailey did in his emotional healing in 3 easy steps. Even though I do that all the time with people, I'm not a therapist. I'm not an academician. I'm not going to write some big, great book about it. And so the idea came to me when I was praying about it. But what I did, I took read about these ultimately 6 books, and there'll be 10 in the end. I took any of those emotional experiences that my characters were going through. There are little vignettes of the moments that were just where the emotions were hitting, that the feelings happened, and I printed them all out, laid them out all on the dining room table, and started to categorize them. Was that betrayal? Was that anger? Was that anxiety? Was that fear? Was that disappointment? Was that secret? Was that manipulation? Was that media trauma? Right? Things. And I broke them into categories. And then I picked words from each thing. And then I took and created chapters with a very well-done index. So what you can do, folks, you can, when you identify something going on with your child, you can pick up my book, Wounds to Wonder. It's called Wounds to Wonder, Stories and Steps to Heal Hurts and Trauma as a Parent. And you can see here's the illustrated book, but still pretty right before you. And you can go through the thing and you can know what I think my child is very, very over. Or what do you think? And then you can also go back to the index because there are a lot of sub emotions, right? Grief is getting carries out emotion. I have to index it to help you look through sub emotion. And then you turn to that chapter of my book. And guess what has a little diagnosis? If your child is withdrawing or your child is experiencing this, and I put it in real childlike language, then this chapter could really help you. Just read 3 or 4 stories, and then it goes theme questions, topical to the issue, to begin to allow the child to tell their story.
Okay.
And then seamlessly into these 3 or 4 emotional healing steps that are so powerful and effective. So that parents, and it's tears, we'll avoid dealing with things because we're so busy. But we will step and do some healing with our kids because we're concerned about them. Well, what happens when you're sitting there with your kid in an environment of awareness that pain is present and it should be dealt with? And what happens when the parent gets to set the example for the child and say, boy, Constance is really feeling very, very wounded by her friend who betrayed her in life.
Yeah.
Wow, that reminds me when I was in 4th grade, one of my kids did that to me. And do you ever feel that? Oh, mommy, yeah. And then what? Guided through the steps that parents and children do together right then and there.
Yeah.
And experience, childhood trauma to be family story.
And everybody can work on healing together.
Yes, and also I've got a beautiful thing at the beginning that explains why the steps work, what the foundation for them is, so that I'm not just blowing smoke up your shorts or pulling some weird philosophy from anywhere that it can come from. Why it's rendered their physical steps, why it's been the foundation in a way to do this, how parents need to access a childlike response to pain, because you probably know all too well that when you're an adult and something childlike coming up, you want to go, oh, but I know, somebody will tell you, I have never been the same since I was screamed out when I was da-da-da-da, and it's coming up for me, talk about it, and then they'll go, but I know I'm a brave person. No, it's stop right there. You need a childlike response.
Yep.
It was just happening for you when you remembered that. So little cues, I'm not here to stay childlike. And then a section of the book is like an introduction for the kid to, if you haven't read these books, which you should, anybody can pick up this book and kind of find out who the characters are, why they're telling their story. It's all in one user-friendly family guide to healing childhood trauma.
Now, where can everybody find your stuff? You said on your website.
TheQuestForWonder.com. TheQuestForWonder.com.
And everybody, I will make sure that we post that with the video so that it's super easy for you to go and find all of her products.
And like I said, and now the Wounds for Wonder book is digitally delivered at this point. It's going to the printer and it will eventually be a wonderful book. But the concepts are so powerful to get it out. So, and it's also a great value, right, with the digital delivery. And all these books, these are seriously heavy, valuable, illustrated books. So they're not, like I said, they're not your throwaways. And I've got these bundle things. So here, get the study guide, and then get that free audio guides, and get the games, and all the things. And the digitally delivered Wounds to Wonder, if they want to have that as well. So it doesn't take long, and it makes it worthwhile to do something different than Amazon. Plus, you know that you are helping me get these out because I'm ready to print 4, 5, and 6. I'm ready to put them out. But obviously, I need to be successful with these so that can happen.
Awesome. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and talk to us. And I'm so glad that we got to meet at the event.
Yeah.
So again, everyone, I will make sure that I include her links when we put this video out for all of our followers. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and follow so you know when the next video is available.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.